Welcome. This is the I314 DAT help screen video. Basically, what I'm going to do is teach you how to use the DAT functions in I314's website. This was created to allow Aftermath game masters to run their DAT a little bit faster by giving them access to all the information they need while running DAT to make it fast. This includes the ability to calculate hit damage and check inventories and track players and do all that good stuff. So let's start off with one quick step backwards and show you one thing that I give to my players. There's a action sheet, this action phase countdown sheet here. It's basically a sheet that allows you to see each of the action phases, and then what characters do is they circle the phase that they're open next. Let's say they're open on 6, they circle 6, and then let's say they're at 8 and they're going to take a fire weapon. They're going to fire 3 times. So they would fire at 8, 7.5, and 7. So we put a little S at 8, S on the line between 8 and 7, and an S at 6, and then, or S at 7, sorry, and then they circle 6 to say, I'm open then. That way, each phase, they can look down at the square. If there's a circle on the top, then they're open. If there's no circle, then they're doing whatever's in the square, and that kind of tracks what they're doing. Now, the Game Master can also track that if they're interested in doing it. I prefer my players to do it, but I've found that my players can't always tell what they're doing in a specific action phase. Even though they know they're shooting, they can't determine if they're supposed to be shooting. So I find it helpful to actually know if they're supposed to be shooting or not, or running or jumping, whatever they're doing. I want to be able to say, you know, character Smith, what are you doing this phase? And they say, I'm going to fire, and I'm going to say, no, you're still, you're still loading your weapon. Please pay attention. So, okay. So the first thing we have to do is log in as the Game Master. If you don't have a Game Master login, you can create one. They're simple to create. I have a bunch of them. We're going to log into this one, which is actually the game that we're currently playing. Once that you're logged in, you have basically the same screen with a little bit more stuff on it. So to start a DAT, we go to this Add Player screen, and in the top part, it shows you your players that you've currently got in your game. And those were added to the DAT screen over here. You have your characters listed here under stored characters. These are the characters that will be listed in there. And then you also have to have an inventory for each of them. So you create an inventory for them or the storages that they're accessing. And then you have all the information you need for the character. So when you go back over here and you add a player, it will list out the players in a specific order. And this is the initiative order based on their speed and their dexterity. So when you add the players, if you add them from the top down, Nick Keanu first, Joe Prince, Clyde. So I'm not going to add the rest of them, but we'll just add those 3. That puts them up here at the top of the DAT screen. So then we add some opponents. Let's have them fight an alligator. And let's make it 2 alligators just to make it fun. So we add 2 alligators. Now, this gives us all the information we need to know as a Game Master about what's happening in DAT. So first thing, let's go ahead and just hit this reset button here, which will start the action phase countdown at phase 8. Okay, now that it's all totally populated, and by the way, you can put little notes down here if you want. You look at your characters, and the way that we go is character, 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 monster, monster, and then back to the top. So the first person to act would be Nick Keanu. Now, there's a lot of information here on this page, and these are the sheets, their character sheets, so you can jump over and check out their character sheet if you need to. This indicates that they're unencumbered. Sometimes you need to ignore encumbrance. Let's say you want to ignore the encumbrance because they've dropped their backpacks and they were partially encumbered, so you just check the button down there and it would turn off the encumbrances. If they are encumbered, it will in fact reduce their base action phase and maximum number of actions appropriately for their encumbrance level. But none of these guys are encumbered, no smart player is. Then it tells you their base action phase, their maximum number of actions and phases consumed in action. Now, what it doesn't show is their DRT, because they need to track their DRT and they need to do that all themselves. I prefer to ask them how they're doing rather than to have it displayed up here. That way, if they start to get low, then they'll start jumping for cover or doing something smart, and I'll know that they're badly injured. If they just stand there in the open and shoot, then maybe they die. So that's their storage. We also have their actions. So let's run through a DAT here where these people are going to shoot something. Or in this case, I think they might be hand-to-hand. I'm not sure what kind of weapons these people have. So I can check by looking at their storage. Nick Keanu has a Desert Eagle, a belt knife, and a bayonet. So that's cool. Whoops. Don't hit back keys. Don't use the back key. Okay. So first, Nick Keanu is going to take an action. So we click on action. And there's notes, there's status, which is whether he's zone of influence blocked, like he entered a zone of influence, or status if he's stunned or stazed, which tracks that to the right action phase. He's currently open, so he's gonna fire his weapon, and he's gonna fire 1 round. Now it says fire weapon, and it says 8/7 mid. So what he's going to do is he's going to be firing at the mid phase between 8 and 7. Since he's firing, his phases consumed in action are 2, so he'll fire at the mid phase. Now you'll notice the red star means that you can go ahead and resolve that right now, because the 8/7 mid phase is actually pretty close, so that's great. We'll resolve that in a second. Joe Prince, he's going to fire his weapon, and we're going to fire 3 rounds this time to show you how that works. So he's going to fire at 8, the 8/7 mid phase, and 7. So it has 2 stars, one for 8 and one for 8/7 mid phase, because that's when we're going to fire that weapon. And Clyde, he's just going to take a survey in command, because he's looking around to see what's going on. And what that'll do is it'll tell you when their open phase is. They're all open at 6. They all have phase consumption action 2. This is phase 8. So they're all open at 6. And that's very helpful, because it tracks everything. So let's do the gators. The gators are going to move forward because they're a little bit far. So they're going to walk. And since there's 2 alligators, I'm not going to indicate for both of them. I'm just going to say both of them are walking. And I'll remember that this action is for both of them, since they're both basically the same distance away or whatever. So they'll be open at 7. So now we're going to fire the weapon. Nick Keanu is going to shoot his Desert Eagle. So what we do is we click on Nick Keanu. First we determine his gun BCS for his Desert Eagle. We can do that by jumping over to this screen. I'm actually not familiar with Nick Keanu's. Scroll down here. Go back to DAT. Let's jump over and find out what his pistol modern is. His pistol modern is 14. So go back over here. We're gonna click on Nick Keanu. And I'll just open this in a new window here. We'll calculate his BCS. So his BCS is 14. I don't need his combative talent exactly, because that's used to calculate whether or not he gets his inherent accuracy. And with a BCS of 14, he's never going to get his inherent accuracy, because that's just not going to happen. So it doesn't really matter what his talent is. Is the shooter engaged? That's just a reminder to tell you whether or not he's engaged. If he's engaged, he has to do a deafness AST. Skill being average? No. Secondary attack? No. Restrictions? No. Is he shooting over an object? No. Yeah, but let's say Joe Prince is standing in front of him, so he's going to take a -1 for friendlies in field of fire. This is a newly acquired target, so he's going to get -2. He's not moving. He is shooting a pistol, although the inherent accuracy isn't so important, because of course we're going to ignore it, because the rules say you ignore it if the BCS is high enough. This will calculate whether or not you ignore it. Gun range modifiers, he is at point blank range, so we're going to mark point blank range. No recoil effects for the first shot. Target's combat dodge ability. What is the combat dodge ability? Well, actually, let's go this way. You can do it from up here. Just click right here. What is the combat dodge ability? So this alligator is walking, so he's going to have a modified combat dodge ability because of his walk. So there's 2 ODAs here. It's his hand-to-hand ODA, which includes his WDA, weapon defensibility, and his missile ODA, which you'll notice the star there indicates that that's a modified ODA. You'll notice this one isn't moving, so his ODA is 1. Because he's walking, he gets a higher ODA. So his ODA is both his combat dodgeability and his modifier for movement. So his current ODA is 2. So we'll indicate that as, we know that you can either enter it as 1 here and then do the walk, which is times 2, or if you're smart, you can just say 2 up here, because that it doesn't really matter, but we'll do it the correct way. And then you hit calculate, it'll tell you what his BCS is. So he has a BCS of 10. Now it says his inherent accuracy bonus does not apply because his BCS is too high. So his BCS is 14, which is greater than his combative, so he doesn't get the bonus. Okay, back to DAT. So he has to roll a 10 to hit the 1 shot. Now this is the mid 7. Now obviously we would have done Joe Prince first because he fired at 8 and 7, but for this we're just going to do this. Okay, Nick Keanu, he's firing his Desert Eagle. He fired 1 shot. So we click on the fire 1. His BDG for that weapon is 16. 1 round struck the target. He is at point blank range. He is not inside the zone of influence. There's no target modification, right side, left side, above or below. The bullet type, he's not using hollow pointed, jacketed, or power shock. So that's just straight up. And he is shooting at alligator number 1. And of course, he can shoot at anybody on the list, but alligator number 1 is his target. So he rolls his damage. Damage done is 5. That's a hit in location 10, which is the belly. The armor value of that location was 6, and the total damage done is 5. So obviously 6 plus 5 is 11. He rolled an 11 points of damage. And after the armor value, it was that. Now it says stopping effects only on crits. This wasn't a crit, so we don't have to worry about that. So now we can apply that damage, the 5 points, to the alligator by clicking this button. It'll take us over to the alligator. It's reduced his DRT down from where it was, which was 59, down to 54. And basically that's that. We go back over here. That's Nick Keanu has shot. We do the same thing for Joe Prince. We calculate his BCS. If he hits, then we go here. Now he's actually firing 2 rounds. Well, since he doesn't have a gun, I guess he ain't actually doing anything like that. But and you're certainly not going to shoot 3 rounds from a compound bow. But that's just what happens when you don't have actual players. So, and then survey and command. Of course, Clyde is open, and then of course these alligators can attack. Alligators, let's say they were in range. Now we know they're not because they're walking, but let's say they were. We could just do a hit with a bite. And the alligator's attacking, let's say Joe Prince. He's attacking from the front. There's no critical modifiers. We roll damage. This will actually calculate Joe Prince's damage in location 4. His armor value is 11. He gets 1 point of lethal damage because of his 11 armor value. Now, that could work for anybody. We don't apply damage. There's no applied damage to players. They have to track their own damage levels. Okay, that's basically the idea of it. Then when phase 7 comes in, you hit phase 7. And now you notice that Joe Prince, if he had a gun, he'd be firing again because he gets a little star there. Everybody is still doing something. Nobody's open. The alligators are open, of course. Normal meaning that they're not stunned or dazed. So the alligators could now initiate an attack. So if the alligators want to initiate an attack, they're going to attack once. They only attack once. And we're going to go back to the DAT screen. It says that they are initiating their attack at 7. They'll attack at the 5-4 mid phase, and they'll be open at 3. And they're only allowed to take a combat move because they're taking a combat action, so only 1 combat move. So go to 6, then you'll notice that each of these switches to open because they are now open to take a new action. Alligator is still doing nothing. Phase 5, now we get a star. It says that the alligators are ready to attack, so we can resolve that attack, and that would be by using the bite or the swing tail buttons. And their BCS, of course, will be listed on their actual alligator page. You go to the alligator page, and it says Alligator Beast Land, based action phase, combat dodge ability, weapon defense ability, and their BCS is 12. So when they're attacking with their biting, it's a BCS of 12, and attacking with their tail swing is a BCS of 10. This alligator one, remember, he was injured. His shock factor is 20. Basically, it has everything you need. Now, this tracks everything for combat, And as the phases go down to 1, you just keep going, and then at phase 1 you just hit reset and it clears everything. You start over again. And you notice these green squares means that these people are open. Players don't get green squares because player's going to tell you if he's open or not. But I, as the game master, need to know if there's a lot of enemies. It's really hard to track them. I know that I can look down and say, okay, alligator 1 and alligator 2 are actually open. So that gives me a lot of benefit there. You'll notice that this page has a lot of information on it. This is Nick Keanu's inventory. It tells you his weapon and actually has all the details of that weapon. If you click on it, it'll give you all his weapon information, including recoil. This is character specific recoil. It takes into account his strength and everything. Go back to the player. If he has a belt knife, it gives you all the information on the belt knife, including the weapon length modifiers, all kinds of stuff like that. It also has his armor, the armor he's wearing, and an armor value chart that shows you all his armors. Then it has all the gear that he's carrying. He's carrying a C4 brick and some TNT. He's the explosives expert of the group, and a bunch of shurikens. He's basically gives you all the information you want, and also tracks encumbrance. So down here at the bottom it says gear outside of pack, guns, hand-to-hand weapons, armor, and gear in backpack, which is a star that it only counts for 2.5, the stuff he's got in his backpack because of his thing. So his total encumbrance is 5.1. His unencumbered value is 6.5, so he's well within range of unencumbered. He could pick up a few more items. The character is unencumbered. So basically, this tracks. Now, obviously, it says here that he has his Desert Eagle in his backpack. Now, this is the magazine for the Desert Eagle. Here's the Desert Eagle. It's in his backpack. Now, there's a specific reason he's carrying that in his backpack and not on him. It's a campaign reason, not a foolish reason. I bet some of these other people are carrying their weapons open. Yeah, he's got his AR-10 in his hand. Now, he could change that location by doing this and put it anywhere he wants. All the ones with stars are locations that are at half encumbrance. Including sat down to be picked up later. Sometimes characters need to set something down for a specific action, but we don't want to remove it from their inventory because that's a lot of painful activity. So we just say mark sat down, and then obviously they picked it up when they were done. This also contains unarmed combat punches and kicks. It's no location and no encumbrance because that's actually built in. But what it does do is it calculates their WDM, weapon damage modifier, and actually gives you information about the punch, so you can know how to punch. The basic, how long is the attack and things like that. It's always important to know that. And he has a katana sword. The location is in his belt. And then he has 18 bullets in his AR-10. He's got a pack of beef jerky in his backpack and a belt. He wears his belt, in location belt, which is where his belt would be. He doesn't have anything on his belt, but he does have his katana on his belt, so he's using his belt to hold his katana up. So he's wearing Mark III armor. That's why his armor's so high. He's got Mark IIIA armor on. He just got it last game. We're running into the end game on this one, and he's got all kinds of really great inventory because of that. And then also there's storages. Like this is the building they currently are occupying, and it's a storage area. And in storages, you can store crafting materials. They have some troll coins, which are a campaign-specific money that they're using, and laboratory supplies, machining supplies. They've got 600 gallons of water and 20 days worth of food. They're currently hunting every day to keep up their food supply. This thing basically tracks everything. It's a little bit more than the DAT Aid, but the DAT Aid is strictly designed for using in DAT, and it allows you to do everything you need to do in DAT very quickly. So Clyde needs to know what his what his BCS is for this AR-10, you just go here, and you notice it automatically populated his combative talent. The BCS is left over from before. Clyde's got a 20. And then we just go through this thing again, and it'll remember the prior settings. Of course, he's using a rifle. So it does all those things and then you just hit the calculate button. It'll tell you the BCS. And also, if you're in critical miss control throw of 1, additional 1. Now, I know that Clyde has a 20/1 BCS. So now with the critical throw modifier of 1, he'll have a 20/2 because his ability to hit is so much better. And of course, his weapon accuracy isn't included because it doesn't apply. But the point blank range and stuff does apply. So that's where he got the extra 1 from, was the point blank range. So it's kind of an interesting thing. You can use it any way you want. I personally use it for every combat because it tracks everything. And in this particular combat, it's not too difficult. You can delete these by removing them. But let's do something like custom opponents. These opponents are rabble, extras, and superior. And these are just basically people to shoot. You basically you can not allow them to have guns, whatever. But when you add one of these guys to the screen, basically it gives them a name, Shirley Seville, and gives them a strength and all their BCSs. Now these BCSs are based on the weapons that they have. So as they have different weapons, they'll have the correct BCSs. And this character has a razor and a Saturday Night Special, a snub Port Sill 6, and it's a 38 long, BDG of 5. And she can shoot just like before. You can go to this and it'll do the calculation for shooting. And the other interesting thing is it gives her some random gear, a flint, a bedroll, and 60 arrows. Of course, she doesn't have a bow. She's just carrying arrows for the hell of it, I guess. And it gives her armor, specific armor for her body. She's wearing some kind of a hockey mask, a plastihide hockey mask, which is the worst hockey mask ever. But she's wearing that. She's wearing shoes and a short sleeve shirt and pants and a jumpsuit. So what makes this nice is that when Shirley gets killed, because she's only got a DAT of 7, when she's Shirley killed, she's dead. DRT 0. No, not like this. Okay. You can hit the loot button. Oh, by the way, you can also modify this if you need to change any of these things. Let's say Shirley Seville is actually Shirley Smith. You can change that if there's some campaign reason why you want to remember her name is Shirley Smith. And you can change her weapons. And you can modify if she has a shield or, oh, wait a second, she actually does have a compound bow. Okay, that's why she's got those arrows. Okay, now she has a compound bow. And see the compound bow up here. But what makes this really neat is now when Shirley dies, you can loot her. And you can loot the weapon. That would give the weapon to somebody. Loot the gun and bullets. You actually push this. It'll give the gun and the bullets to somebody in one thing. You can, somebody says, I want the flint and the arrows. So you take the flint and take the arrows, take all checked. That'll allow you to send it to anybody in the party that you want. Or put it in a storage. Let's say they have their dune buggies and trailer with them. Now that would just stick that in the dune buggy and trailers. Makes looting. Then they can loot any armor they want. They just click the loot button and it says who's going to get that materials. And it's very quick and easy to loot. That just saves a ton of time when you're trying to loot somebody. I know looting takes so dang long. But this just lets you loot really quickly and also generates, random items. And I didn't have to generate this inventory or anything. This was all just added by the machine. It just did all that. And let's add another one here. Let's go to, now you can also add custom opponents. Custom opponents are opponents where you've specified a large amount of information. You can, let's say they're an average and they have novice training. So it gives them their information. And then you can give them specific information like armor. Let's say I want to give them light armor. Did I click on that? Okay. And then it gives them, cloth pants and a cloth jacket and boots. Leather boots, right? So basically I can generate this. Now I have some presets here for my game. For example, if you want to know what a troll is, a troll, which is a person, not a monster, a person called a troll. This is the information about a troll. And if I need to add a troll to combat, it takes me about 2 seconds to run over, add this preset, flip back to the DAT screen, and there's a troll with all his information, including stuff that can be looted. He's got a backpack, a lighter, a can of soda, some sunglasses, a waterproof sack, a tablet computer. I mean, just a whole slew of crap, and all of his armor's right here. So you can loot the armor. And it allows you to really quickly make opponents. Beasts as well. We added some alligators earlier, but here's the list of beasts. We have a lot of beasts, including zombies if you're running a zombie apocalypse. And then custom NPCs can be anything. I mean, you know, these are actually, that's a Mark 1 warbot. You could check out the stats on a Mark 1 warbot. They got a DRT and 90. Use those carefully. And basically that's it. That's the whole thing. You can do everything from here very quickly. And then the other thing that you can do, which is kind of cool, is that over here in the inventory manager, this is a inventory manager, and not allow means that whatever this is, M433, which is actually a vehicle, means not allowed. That means the players can't see what's in it. When they log in to use this, they can't see what's in it. And if you look at it, it's full of all kinds of really good stuff that's for their in-game assault on the bunker. It's got all kinds of stuff in it, blasters and stuff. I don't usually use blasters, but in this particular game, it's one of the neat things that they can get. And it's just a really neat thing that allows you to create your inventory lists for various things for loot. And then what you do is you just hit the allow button, and the players can look at it and loot it all they want, or take it with them if it's a vehicle, right? If they loot a vehicle, they could just literally drive off in the vehicle, and it would be included in their loot list. Now, they have the Stubbs farm here. They have stuff at the Stubbs farm. They have a basket that, oddly enough, Sonia sewed. They have a feather sleeping bag, which they found somewhere and didn't need. And then they've got all these crafting supplies. And the problem with crafting supplies is they're freaking heavy. So they were not able to get these crafting supplies and take them back to their base. They took what they could carry, but they weren't able to carry everything. So because, you know, this armor metals, this steel they have has an encumbrance of 23. And if you look at their vehicles, the dune buggy and trailers, they have a maximum amount that they can carry, which is looks to be about 659. So you can only carry so much, and they've got, you know, food and water in here, and this food and water actually came up when they came back from Stubbs Farm last time. They brought this food and water with them. They haven't unloaded it yet, but it's there. So that's the DAT manager. Basically allows you to do everything with DAT, and has little help guides on it so you can remember things. And if a player needs to look at his inventory, he can do that. If a player is needing to look at his AK-47 because he doesn't remember what it is, okay, this is a BDG-19 weapon. It is +4 with inherent accuracy. It gives you the ranges, the shooter movement modifiers, talks about where it's stored, and this one here is, this should be slung. I don't know why it's not slung, but now it is. And then you can add additional features to the weapons, like if it has a scope or something, you could add those, and it'll include those in the additional features. And so basically, it's an amazing way to track everything. You want to know what your slingshot does? Here's your ranges for your slingshot. It does everything. If you need anything else added, let me know. I'm happy to help. My email address is actually right here on the splash page. So if you need to send me something, I'm right there. Thank you very much.